right, what is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Woo! And we have got a special one this time around. I think we're going to be doing a two-part series on this one. And well, if you guys read the title, you know who we are talking to is none other than Willem and Avenant. And man, we got a lot of ground to cover. Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge with the Decoding Dakar side of things. We got some SoCal Rally to talk about in part 2. So I hope you guys are ready. I'm excited to hear about this. Abu Dhabi is no easy feat. So see if we got him, get him on the line here quickly. We'll get right to it. Willem, you there?
I am, yeah. Oh, Victor, how are you? Hi, everybody that's listening.
I'm doing well. I'm trying to remember how this whole podcast thing goes. I took a little bit of a break. So, but everything is good. How about you?
Right, yeah, we all missed you, man.
Appreciate it. It's been good. A little bit of a mental break, strategizing things and getting stuff going. And but speaking of things going, you've been doing a little bit of travel, Mr. International.
I have. Yeah, it's been insane. I kind of didn't realize how much I'd be traveling when I put all of this together earlier in the year. But yeah, it's been, last time we spoke, I think I was on my way to Abu Dhabi, or I think, yeah, I'd just come back from South Africa. Mm-hmm. And I was training in South Africa for Abu Dhabi. And for the guys that's new to the Decoding Dakar thing, we're trying to build up a concise guideline or at least guide to get to Dakar. So the reason I went to Abu Dhabi was to make sure that I have enough points when the application process for Dakar rolls around in mid-May. And I was kind of nudged by the ASO saying that, look, if you're going to do a race this year, make sure it's the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge. And so, yeah, I entered for the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge, went with the same team that I was planning to go to Dakar, HT Rally Raid. And man, it was a crazy, crazy, crazy experience. My first World Rally Raid Championship round, definitely disillusioned by a few things and also really surprised and impressed by a bunch of stuff. So, yeah, I don't know if you have any specific questions or how we want to dive into it, but it was epic.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there are there are many questions. So, I mean, and I mean, first of the thing, have you by any chance, and and with so much going on, have you by any chance started to log how many miles you've flown for this project yet?
I have not, and I think that I should maybe put a counter on. So thanks for that good idea. I'm not tracking it, but I record it all, so it would be interesting. I have signed up for a loyalty program. I can tell you that much. So hopefully I'll have some kind of status after this year.
Yeah, I can see a Visa or MasterCard saying, "Oh, look at this. We need to upgrade his status." Oh,
yeah,
man.
No, that would be great, man. And flying, is obviously, you're always trying to fly the cheapest possible, fare. Mm-hmm. So, it's always just it's not it's not a complaint. It's just, it's interesting because, the seats get smaller and smaller the further back you go in the plane. Mm-hmm. So it's
now pro
it's
tip.
One of those things.
Now, I'm not gonna say a pro tip because it's been a while since I've flown regularly. But in some of the stuff that I saw, and I'm going this makes sense, it's best to try and get a seat at the back of the plane, because if for some reason they need to balance the plane out, the first seats they're going to pull are from the back of the plane, because that makes the biggest difference.
I always choose it almost right in the back, unless I have a tight connection, which happens a lot in the US because they put the connections, internal connections, way too tight.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I've now learned is if I do a red eye or a long overnight flight, I used to always just do the aisle seat because I pee all the time. Anybody that's ridden with me will know that I have to stop all the time to pee.
Yeah.
And I realized that if you're sleeping on that, or if you're sitting in the aisle, you can never really sleep. So now I'm like, okay, if it's going to be an overnight flight, I make sure I get a window seat, and then that, or you just sit in the middle and you lie on the passenger next to your shoulder, make them really uncomfortable, especially if you're coming from a race and you're all stinky and sweaty.
Yeah, when it's been a few days.
Exactly.
I can imagine, it takes a few days for the scent. The eau de dessert.
I think that scent just follows me around these days.
That's how you know
my
it's
odor.
Racer things.
Yep.
That's so nice. So, okay. So Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge, like you mentioned, we had previously talked about it in the previous Decoding Dakar episode. So the point system, they're awarding points. The Dakar wants to see, or the ASO wants to see a points tally, basically when it comes time to apply for the Dakar, and they're going to kind of rank competitors by that, right? If it's
correct,
depending on how many points you have, basically I think what they're looking for is the customer loyalty points. I think this is how it's disguised.
They'll never tell you that that's what it is, but it's a nice way of kind of referring to it. And I think that, for a long time, I wasn't able to get any numbers out of them. Mm-hmm. And, finally, I'm like, okay, finally they're willing to give me some concrete numbers. So for those guys that's following along with Decoding Dakar, for me, currently, I have 26 points, including Abu Dhabi. So if you do a World Rally Raid Championship round, it is 12 points. I believe Portugal was only 8 just because it wasn't like a legitimate rally as far as the navigation and stuff's concerned. Okay. So I think if I'm right, Portugal was 8, but I'll have to check. I'm speaking under correction. Mm-hmm. So obviously 12 points just kind of, blows anything else out of the water, points wise. So they definitely encourage you strongly to invest in their events by doing them, because then you pretty much going to have a smooth ride to Dakar if you are a World Rally Raid Championship rider. Mm-hmm. And, I went into Abu Dhabi being so confident because of the as far as confident for Dakar acceptance, just because of the way that I had gotten to Abu Dhabi. I was effectively led there by the ASO. It's step by step. Willem, do this. And they were very good at that. And then at Abu Dhabi, I had a huge, I don't want to call it emotional fall, but it was a huge realization because I was there all happy. And then I met at least 3 people, there's probably more, that said to me, yeah, Willem, the exact same thing happened to us last year. And here we are at Abu Dhabi again this year. And I mean, I can't tell you how my spirit sank when I heard that, because I'd gone from, okay, I'm pretty much not guaranteed, but I know I'm going to get accepted for Dakar, to, oh, wow, now I'm surrounded by people that are all trying to get to Dakar. That's all done what I've done. And they're here for the second time. So that was like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So then after Abu Dhabi, they're like, okay, so the point system, if we take the average points or the points last year of people that were accepted into Dakar for 2024, it ranged between 24 to 30 points.
Okay.
I'm currently at 26, but now, as we discussed before, there's a very limited amount of actual seats, if you discount the GP riders and all of that. So it's going to come down to how many people apply and what is the experience level of those people.
Okay.
So again, the ASO highly encourages you to do 2 World Rally Raid Championship rounds, because that way, you're going to blow anybody else out the water. So that's become I'm basically at the bottom end of the spectrum, and whether I get accepted or not is going to depend on how many people enter and how many people have more points than I do.
Gotcha. Yeah. So
just for the record, just for the record, everybody that has been supporting me, obviously, huge shout out and huge thanks for that. I really, really appreciate it. And to make sure that everybody's on the same page, if for some reason I do not get accepted for 2025, which again, to me at this point is not an option. I'm pushing really hard for 25, then everything Decoding Dakar basically rolls into 2026, and we keep doing exactly what we're doing. We keep documenting the journey, because that is then the whole point is to portray a realistic journey to Dakar. So if I've done this much and I still don't get accepted, I'm not quitting. I'm not giving up. There's no way that I'm not going to Dakar. The question is just that if for some reason I am not accepted, then we're talking 2026, because then I need to go and do another World Championship round.
Yeah. Yeah, to continue to add to the points. And I mean, that was the thing. When the Decoding Dakar thing started, it wasn't Decoding Dakar 2025. It was Decoding Dakar. So, yeah, I mean, it is still part of the journey. If there's no acceptance this year, which we hope that's not the case, then, it's on to the next. The journey continues. So I think that's I think that's important, because you're painting a realistic picture. And then, when we first talked about the whole project, it was like, that's the idea, is there's never been really a documentation of like, hey, here's the whole process. Or if there is, it's not as new and relevant, as what you're doing literally right now. A lot of the people that you talk to about getting into the Dakar, well, they were either a long time runner, or they were back in a position or back in a time where it was a completely different set of rules to get into the rally. So that's, I think, again, when you initially approached about it, that's the big part of this whole project is like, look, this is the real world scenario of how to get into these rallies, or how to get into the Dakar rally. So, so we know. And so, all right. So kind of talking a little bit about it. I mean, Abu Dhabi, they kind of nudged you and saying, hey, this is the first one. And I could see that they, that's probably why, the Dakar just finishing up. A lot of teams spent all their budget on that. So probably attendance numbers for Abu Dhabi wouldn't be exceptional per se. But I mean, how did it go? I mean, let's break the days down, right? Scrutineering first, travel days. What's the...
So there was a lot of logistical issues with Abu Dhabi this year, and as with all rallies, there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes, which made the start of the rally to be a little bit disjointed for most teams, because there was issues with bikes and cars and equipment being delivered from Saudi Arabia. After Dakar, it basically didn't arrive in time in Abu Dhabi. And it is one of those things that I've come to realize in the rally world is like, no matter how well you plan, you're always fighting some kind of logistical deadline, always. And the result was that, and again, it wasn't just our team, pretty much most of the teams had only received their bikes on the day of scrutineering. So for me, scrutineering was crazy, because everything was out of whack. We couldn't go to scrutineering on our assigned times, but again, we arranged. It wasn't that we just ignored it, but that was all kind of a blur, just getting everything done. And again, being part of a team really, really helped with that. And there, I cannot stress that the kind of experience of HT there more than saying that, they are by far, in my opinion, one of the best teams out there just based on their experience. Henk, the owner of HT, has been to every single Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge, which is over 30.
Wow.
When he went to the first one, it was called the Dubai Desert Challenge, and there was one Marriott hotel in Dubai. Like, that was it. There was one hotel, and now it's Dubai as you know it. And he's seen the entire, growth of that. He's never, ever missed one Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge.
Wow.
So scrutineering, I didn't get the whole, let's call it FIM kind of experience. I mean, the bike was scrutineered, the kit was scrutineered, but it was all kind of, towards the end of the day when everything was kind of winding down. But scrutineering was fine. We passed. We all had to use digital road books. It's only the GP class that's allowed to choose between paper and digital. And I also noticed that a lot of people were just kind of, even if they didn't like the digital so much, the Unic 4 was going for it just because they know it's inevitable. So it's better than sticking with the paper because they know at some point, they're not going to have the option. So they might as well just get used to it.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting observation for me. But yeah, so scrutineering went. And then I was totally prepared for an extremely difficult race. And the reason that the ASO had sent me or suggested that I do Abu Dhabi is because it is by far the most difficult qualifier of the bunch. It is 100% sand and dunes, and it is pretty much 100% off-piste HP cap all the time. I mean, there's a few roads that you go on, but they're minuscule. So to put it into perspective, the longest, the chrono stage in Dakar in the empty quarter this year was 600 Ks. So if we divide that by 2, because it was over 2 days, that's 300 kilometers a day. And those were big days. Most stages in the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge was 250 kilometers a day, all in the sand, all in the dunes. Okay. So that kind of puts it into perspective as far as how it would compare to a chrono stage. It was like doing two and a half chrono stages back to back, basically, because that was just the same every day. It was... So because of all the time I spent in January, I knew it would be tough, and it was as tough as I thought it was going to be, which was great because it's not that I was caught unaware. So I was like, okay, it's going to be difficult. And I kind of enjoyed that aspect of it because I had put in the work and the effort. I was prepared for it. Okay. So for me, it's misleading to say Abu Dhabi isn't difficult. It is extremely difficult. But for me personally, it wasn't so difficult because I trained for it. I was ready for it. And I treated Abu Dhabi for myself almost like a mini Dakar. I packed the way that I would pack for Dakar. I wore the clothes and the kit I would wear for Dakar. I wanted to kind of have a mirror image of what it would like to go to Dakar. So I was I was over prepared for Abu Dhabi. I took it way more seriously than I probably should have. But that was exactly the point for me, was to say, okay, this is how I'm going to approach Dakar. I might as well practice in Abu Dhabi.
Okay. Yeah.
So in that regard, I had 3 goals. Number 1 was to not crash. Number 2 was to not have any penalties. And number 3 was to basically see what I had to work on and focus on for the rest of the year. Part of that was to remove any kind of dune or sand intimidation that I had as well. That's kind of rolled into part number 3. And speed and position never kind of was in it for me at all. I never worried about, or it was never a goal. I never went to compete. I went to finish. And I would say that was definitely one of the biggest disenchantments for me of the World Rally Raid Championship is that, and the FIM refers to any rally that's not a FIM rally as a amateur rally. So anything that's not FIM is amateur. And the difference there to me was stark. It didn't have that, what I call kind of rally feeling, that nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. And the reason was simply because everybody was there to race. If you're not there to race, what are you doing here? Kind of thing. That is kind of and it wasn't in a scenario of being rude or different. It was just, that's why you do the World Rally Raid Championship, is to race. It's not to have a good time or not just to finish. It's to push as much as you can. So in that regard, I was a little bit out of place. Mm-hmm. And that was a concern for me before the time, wondering how that would go down, because it's similar to making it to the starting blocks of the Olympics, say 100-meter sprint, and then I tell everybody around me, I'm not going to sprint, I'm just going to jog. They'd be like, well, why would you be here? Like, why would you go through all the effort to be here then?
Yeah. I think that's, I mean, and to kind of recap that, I mean, it's, this whole thing is all geared towards Dakar. So, I 100% agree with how you're doing it. You're like, okay, well, if I'm going to go play, I'm going to go play like this is the real game, and mm-hmm. go out and, all the gear, all the stuff, which I got to say, Mira had you pretty dialed. I mean, you're looking pretty pro out there. He did it. The guys over there did.
I was blown away.
Yeah, they
Gerard, he's amazing. He actually delivered the gear in person to Abu Dhabi, which is crazy.
Look at that. Now I don't know if Garrett's going to hear this and say, so is there like has he made like a garment bag, that's got the big Mira logo on it, and then it'll say like, W Avenant. So you have, like when you get a tuxedo or you get a suit, it comes in a suit bag.
I wouldn't know, man.
I'm getting him into trouble. Gary, if you listen to this,
I've never bought a tuxedo.
Oh, well, or the suit. They come in a garment bag. And
yep.
I mean, and I only say now being at BMW, that's a thing, right? They people ask mm-hmm. for it. Is the garment bag in the box? I'm like, man, this is, and then you open it and there's a BMW Motorrad garment bag for their nice rally jacket that they just bought. So I think it's a nice touch.
Gerard, take note.
Yeah. I think that'd be kind of a cool deal, and especially you see it hanging in the closet, kind of keep the dust off the stuff. Well, you should be riding, so you shouldn't have dust accumulated from sitting.
I will say, I mean, it's an unashamed plug for Mira, but it is insane the way that the kit wears and looks after the rally. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I almost didn't, like, my kit has got a lot of white in it, mm-hmm. and I fully expected the white to kind of turn brown. I almost didn't need to wash my jacket after. I mean, I did, but it was still looking brand new after Abu Dhabi. I mean, it was crazy. I couldn't believe it. They're using a new type of material, which is really, really cool. It's like much more harder wearing.
Nice. Good. I mean, and that's important, and there's something interesting to be said about that. And I know he already did the, he did the math on it, but I just recently got a hold of the airbag that you've been wearing, or the consumer version of the one you've been wearing. Mm-hmm. And it's an actual thing, it's like you have to size it, and then you have to get gear that will basically allow it to do its job. A thick jacket that's form fitting, which seems to be, the whole skinny jean crowd, is not going to allow room for it to expand.
No, I had to specially make measurements with my airbag on it. I actually happened to be in South Africa when I was training. We actually did the measurements while I was there, and that was a big help.
Got it. Yeah. So that, and I think that's important. And I mean, for those, those playing the home game, I guess the real world example is, have you ever been out on the road and you look over and the person in the car next to you is 6 inches away from the steering wheel? And that's how they drive. And the question comes up, well, where does the airbag go when it detonates? if it detonates, right? So it's a similar thing. You know, if you wear gear that's really tight, or you could probably get away with wearing tighter gear, but it better be really thin to where it will either stretch or it will rip if the bag goes off, versus a thicker like rally jacket that's, you know, one of those like hard canvas 600 denier materials that will probably just stop the airbag from expanding to its full potential.
Exactly. And so what they've done with the new one is, because I had the old one. And so what they've done with the new one is they basically, I think Skylar had this issue as well, where he was riding with the old one. And, you know, if there's no place to go, it basically goes inward. So you kind of implode yourself. So with the new one,
sounds violent.
on your flanks, basically on your left and your right side, they put in special stretch material. So while they're still using the hard wearing material, but then they put in expandable sections so that when the airbag goes off, the whole thing just stretches, which is really ingenious.
Yeah. Okay. So that is a much better position to be in.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so Abu Dhabi, we went through that. Now let's talk. You know, the logistics sucks, right? It's always it's sad to hear that is a thing, but I mean, I guess it is a thing anyway. You're trying to import vehicles temporarily into an area. You got to deal with all of these logistical nightmares. It's just, and if it doesn't happen at this one, it happens at the next one. So nobody's exempt from that one. But let's talk the race. You know.
Okay.
You kind of said, you know, like, okay, we're here to practice, you know, and it's not, you want to race, but you don't want to blow yourself out because, well, you know, the idea is whatever happens, you still got to be ready to go in less than a year for the Dakar.
Exactly. And also I would have nothing to gain when I'm racing. I mean, I have everything to lose there and nothing to gain because I'm not doing the whole series. So one thing it did do is really make me want to do the whole series.
Okay.
But, because it gets you thinking, like, you know, if you do push, you know, like one of my teammates, he was from Lithuania. And he was there and he was super fast. I think on one day he was faster than Ross as far as his time is concerned. And, you know, all of us just kept on saying to him, listen, man, you have to calm down. Like this is crazy. And the difference is that all of the guys at that level between me and them is they are okay with crashing out because they know, and, you know, they'll tell you straight up, like all of them, that they know and they accept the risk of ending up in the hospital, but that's the only way you would get to the podium.
Yeah.
So, you know, he was doing well. I think he crashed out on stage 4, you know, but because he just went too fast and he hit a side road at too fast of a speed and he went flying, and luckily he was okay, you know, which is insane given the speed of the crash. And again, there the airbag prop for the airbag comes in. But it did make me think that, you know, it would be interesting to try. I mean, I would never not push for a podium, but to compete in the whole World Rally Raid Championship. It would be a very, very cool project, effectively. But yes, so to come to the race, you know, Abu Dhabi, super, super dangerous. I spent a lot of time phoning a lot of people, speaking to a lot of people. A lot of people gave me advice. And it basically comes down to the fact that, you know, it's 5 days of solid drops. The dunes there. I think after day 4 or 3, I started asking myself, like, you know, when do we go up? Like, it feels like we're just going down the whole time, and it is just drop upon drop upon drop upon drop, and it's fine for, you know, an hour, 2 hours, but if you are racing all day and you lose focus for literally 5 seconds, you know, you crash. And it's that mental fatigue that you get into because you just have to focus all the time. You cannot think about anything else.
Yeah.
So for me, the one crash I did have, which was the first time ever I set off my airbag, was again, I literally, because there's so much sand out there and so much dunes. Some guys got seasick, like you're on the ocean.
Yeah.
And the reason I crashed was there was I think it was a vehicle or something in front of me, either a vehicle or bike, and whatever it was just disappeared. Like it was in front of me and then it was gone. And I lost focus for a split second thinking, that's weird. Why did that just disappear? And the next moment I was on the deck, I just crashed. And it was just literally, the ground beneath you just disappeared and it was just a drop that you couldn't see. And that's all the time. Like it's not just once or twice. That's the rally. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting. And obviously I beat myself up quite a bit about that I did crash, because that was the whole point, is not to crash. But that was the only crash I had. So I'm pretty okay with that. Then the other thing was just that once the cars catch you, so the most of Nasser would catch me about halfway in the stage, and then he was by far on this specific rally the fastest, so there was a huge gap between him and the other cars. So once he catches me, I knew I had 10-15 minutes before all hell breaks loose, and these cars they would come past you. I mean, I've never really experienced that in the sand. I've experienced it on other rallies, but in the dunes, if you put out your arm, you touch them. Like they come right next to you.
Yeah.
And for me, for some reason, I think it's all the years of working with chainsaws, I cannot hear the ERTF buzzer. The frequency I can't hear it. I've tried everything. And the bike is loud. So I didn't hear the buzzer going off when the cars come past. If I'm lucky enough to be looking down at the screen, I would see that there's a car coming. But most of the time, they would just blow past me and I'd get a fright. And what happens inevitably when you get that fright, that split second of letting off the throttle, means that you end up putting the bike down because you lose all your momentum in the sand. So you don't necessarily crash, but the moment you let off the throttle, even just a little bit, that fright you get, like when something comes past you, just that little bit causes you to lose all your momentum, everything.
Yeah.
And then you have to start from scratch. So it took me at least a day or two to get into the mindset of, listen, once the cars come, you have to kind of stay wide. And the problem there is that the cars take the easiest line. So no matter how much you try and stay out of their ruts, you always get pulled in. I was swearing at myself, screaming at myself, being like, stay out of the freaking ruts. How hard can it be? And then 5 minutes later, you're back in, because they obviously have very advanced navigators, so that they end up going where the bike goes naturally, effectively.
Well, I don't know. I've seen the Dakar video. I don't know about their navigators, unless they got a bike guy in there. We all saw it. True. It's not new information. We all saw them trying to figure out the line when they had to lead out the stage. But like you said, and to Mo's point, Mo Hart, when we talked, it was the same thing. Is so as the day goes by, the ruts just get deeper and deeper and deeper, to the point where the GPS would even register the change in elevation. I mean, so, I could see it, they're trying to pick the closest line, the shortest line, but that's kind of the line you want too. And well,
and especially if you come over the dunes, because what they do is, obviously when they crest a dune, they immediately turn, because they can't go straight down like the bikes. So if you imagine the car going up the dune, cresting, and then turning to the left or to the right sharply, they literally eat out a gouge into the dune. So when you come over the dune as the bike, normally we would take our turn with the bike before the crest to look over and see what's on the other side.
Yeah.
Now we don't have to because there's tracks. So okay, I'm going over the dune, but then the ruts are too deep to go straight. So then you're forced to follow in the car lines, but then there's car lines everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So and that is, if that brings me to the point of what I've learned in Abu Dhabi, mainly the biggest lesson for me for Dakar was like, I have to up my, what I call my safe speed, or my average safe speed, because once the cars catch you, your risk profile of having a stupid crash just goes through the roof. You can only ride in the ruts of the cars for so long before you're going to crash. No matter how good you are, no matter how focused you are, it's just, you're just putting yourself in a dangerous scenario for no reason.
Yeah.
So the key there would be, to ride as much as possible or as hard as possible at the Dakar until the cars catch you. And then once they do, you kind of just, you take a step back, because you're never going to outride them. So once they catch you, you have to kind of dial it down so that you are extra safe, because now you have to contend with those ruts.
Yeah. And then it just becomes I can imagine. So now, okay, you've got the dealing with the terrain stress, you've got the navigation stress, and now you've got the vehicle behind you stress. So
yes, exactly. And it became especially on the dunes, it was okay, because if one car came past, you could kind of stop on a crest, look back and be like, okay, there's 3 more coming, let them just come past and then I'll carry on.
Mm-hmm.
On the point of navigation, in Abu Dhabi specifically, I would definitely say that for me personally, being a navigator, I was fairly disappointed in the navigation. The first 3 days, there was just no navigation. It was all caps, and you had to navigate, but because of the fact that you have guys opening, there's just tracks. So you never, if the volume of people or the amount of people that do these races that don't have a lot of navigation experience is quite high, because you're never going to be in the top 10 guys that's actually making these lines. So on day 4, finally we got to a point where we were crossing some other tracks and some other lines, and that at that waypoint I knew, like, okay, today is going to be the day where people, if you have never navigated or if you don't know about navigation, today's the day that you're going to have to get it on, because finally on day 4 we had some actual navigation. And I mean, if you go and look at the results on day 4, there were people lost for hours. There was 15-30-minute penalties for missed waypoints. It was insane. It was just a free fall out there. So on day 4 I was like, yes, finally I can at least do what I'm good at, which is not racing as fast as I can, but at least I could navigate. So I was very confident day 4 and day 5 with the navigation, which was great for me. So that's the one thing. The other thing that I learned with the nav in the dunes, which really helped, and I cannot understate how good and cool it is, and that's one of the positive things at these races, about how much experience there is around there. One of our teammates was a guy called Kies Quillen, I think is his surname, and he's done Dakar on a truck.
Ooh.
Or in trucks, in bikes, in quads, in side-by-sides, and in a car. He's literally finished Dakar in every single, discipline there is. And, for me, one thing to learn, I ask for advice very easily all the time. And I learn something new from everybody. And these guys, a lot of the more experienced guys you'll see, have nothing to do with the cap or the track or anything. They look at the terrain, and if they see that, we're going to go through a bunch of choppy dunes, it's just a bunch of drops, but they can see in the distance where the lines go from the top guys. they'll just hang to the left or to the right and hightail it, to where they can see the course going, because there's no point in putting yourself through all of that extra effort and stress and fighting the bike if you know where you're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very valuable lesson for me, as far as, just not fatiguing yourself. And I already practiced the fact that, I don't really always ride exactly on the road book unless there's a waypoint involved. But this was like seeing how far off the road book you can go in the dunes, as long as you have a point of reference.
Yeah.
That was pretty, I wouldn't say scary, but pretty impressive. There's some guys that, they'd go off a long ways to the side of the track. And that was cool. And that also saves you a lot of effort. Mm-hmm. Then there's these, a few times we had, I think it was called L3s, like the biggest dunes. You get to the base of these dunes, and Victor, it's like you look up a mountain, and as far as you can see, there's just bikes strewn up the face of this mountain, not making it up. And then you're at the bottom, you're like, okay, you don't want to be one of those guys. You need to make it up here in one go. And then you take a minute, you stop, you look at the lines, and you decide what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times, what I've learned is that, there's normally a line to the left or to the right of the dune that's way easier than what I would call the factory line or the Euro line. But then again, and there's something we haven't even touched on, is the bike. Once you get the RFR down, and once you understand the bike, even for me let's call it as an amateur, there's no reason not to take the factory line, because that bike can do it. And that's, and the moment you realize that actually the only limiting factor to the size of the dunes and to the climb is your own kind of fear, then it changes the game, right? Because you're like, okay, I can do that. And I will never forget, like, I think it was on day 3, I came up, it was a long run up to a massive dune. And I could see the factory line, and then to the right you have I don't know what you want to call it. I don't want to use the wrong word on the show, but, to the right you have the wimp line that, goes around the dune. Yeah. And then you've got the factory line going straight. And I could see that there was one guy that I could see a line halfway up the dune where the guy turned around, where he didn't make it up. And I was like, okay, time to kind of, face your demons here and stop taking the wimp line and just do it. Like, you have to get up this without turning around. And I'm calling it the wimp line. I think that's actually wrong. Let's call it the energy saving line, because
the efficiency line.
the efficiency line, because the guys that take it, these are the guys with the experience. They're the guys that's going around, because what they're doing is they're saying, like, listen, number one, you're going to pick up your cap on the other side because there's 10 professionals in front of you, number one. And number two, you are going to expend 10 times more energy not getting up the dune or getting stuck or getting turned around than if you do just going around. So if you want energy efficiency, don't take risks, which, makes sense.
Yeah.
But at this point, I was like, I'm here to train. I'm here to get the intimidation factor of dunes out of me. I want to leave Abu Dhabi being not scared of dunes. The healthy respect, definitely. I'm not saying not respect, but I don't want to be intimidated by size.
Yeah.
And I was just decided, listen, I'm just going to go for it. And I'm not turning around. This dune is not an option. I have to make it up. And I would say this was early in the morning of day 3. And that's when stuff started clicking for me. And I started understanding the bike. And I realized then that as long as you ride the RFR the way that it's meant to ride, there is nothing it won't go up. This thing, it is insane how much power it has and what it can do. I was hitting dunes like bottoming out the back suspension as I would hit the dune. And, it would just pull all the way up. And if it feels like, okay, it's not going to go, you just gear down and you just give more gas and it just carries on going. It was insane. So when that clicked, it definitely got more fun for me, because I'm like, okay, now I know it's just me. I'm the only limiting factor here. And I loved after that, I could take those lines much easier. There was one, again, Henk, the team manager, told me one day, it's like, the only thing you have to remember is that every dune wants to kill you. That's all you need to know. And we went up it was like a series of dunes, just getting higher and higher and higher. And I got over each one without, like, at the top, I just want to get stuck, but I never did. But, it became a hit and miss on the crest of every one, the higher I went. Mm-hmm. So the last one is like, look, I can't be doing this like almost overstuffed the whole time. It's too risky. I need to push more. And I hauled up that dune way too fast. I knew I was going too fast, but I knew I had to in order not to lose my momentum at the top. Mm-hmm. And probably 5 meters before the top, like literally Henk's words came into my mind, being like, I heard it. He's like, just remember, every dune wants to kill you. And I tapped down, and as I went over the crest, there was just nothing on the other side. It was just a sheer freaking drop. Yeah. And if I had taken that drop at the speed that I was going, it would have been over. I would have ended up in hospital for sure. Yeah. And I mean, I got chills, it was like, what the hell? And even there, I immediately said, okay, this is it. This is exactly what I'm not supposed to do. So it was fighting that balance of consistency and speed versus pushing it and going too fast all the time. And that rally is great. It teaches you that. For me, it created me that balance, because at the end of every single day, I was ready for more. I could do 250 Ks in the dunes at that pace. Mm-hmm. And I would be like, yeah, I'll do this again. Let's turn around. Let's go back. I'm happy to do it. And that to me was really good, because now I have that sand demon, especially after Sonora's crash. I have that sand demon out of me. I'm like, okay, I'm 100% okay with sand and dunes. I want it. I like it. But at the same time, I've learned that I need to up my safe speed a little bit more, just so that, the moment you start playing catch up, then that's a problem, especially in Dakar. If you're in the back 75% of the field, you're going to lose time every day. And the problem is that time compounds every day. You fall behind more and more and more. So the key, it sounds like, from listening to the more experienced guys, is to not push, but just be fast enough so that you're always somewhere below the bottom 75%, basically.
Yeah. God. And it's, I mean, I'm trying to, wrap my head around, with what you just said, and trying to imagine just that particular situation, right? Is, you heard the words, they were told to you, and then you go up this dune, at a pace where it's like, I need this pace to get to the top of it, right? There's that, like you said, there's that balance, and the worst is, I've done it on an adventure bike, is that you carry just not enough speed, and the front tire almost gets there, but it's so close to the top, but yet not there, that you literally have to turn around. I mean, there's no other, it's not going to get traction to get up. It's not going to, and then the validation of that, you get to the other side and go, wow, this is, and like you said, I mean, at the beginning of this, it's right. It's like, it's a dressed rehearsal for the Dakar, but it's still a rehearsal, so
exactly, like, because that would have taken me out to Dakar without a doubt.
Yeah.
Like, and that shatters your dreams. I mean, that's it. Then you were done. Yeah. And I think that's the thing is, up until that point, and I mean, I think a lot of people that does a lot of sand and dunes will attest to that, is the reason I was going faster and faster is because it felt so good, and I truly felt at that point in time that I have it down. I really, because all the dunes were the same up until that very, very last one, so it's not like it was just this one lone dune. I went up a series of dunes that, must have been 15 or 20 of them. And each one I slowed down, and then each one, there's not, the top is either flat or a very slow, like, roll down. So you could go faster and faster because I thought that I have the terrain down. It's like, okay. And then it's this last one. So another kind of thing that Henk mentioned, and a lot of people mention it, and that I adhere to, is the moment that you start feeling comfortable in the dunes, that's when you know you're in danger, if that makes sense. Because you should never, every dune wants to kill you. You have to see it that way. And that is what affects my speed so much, because I'm riding overly cautious, but then again, I'm not riding so that I get stuck on the dunes. On the entire Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge, there was 5 times that I had to either turn around or didn't get over a dune out of thousands of dunes that we crossed.
Yeah.
So I was happy with that, but that, and that's the thing. I'm in a very weird spot where I'm not an amateur, but I'm also not a professional, and it's that kind of no man's land currently, because I'm not prepared to end up in hospital, but you also can't ride there if you don't take it seriously enough. So it's that very, I kind of am not fitting in anywhere in that regard. But that keeps me on 2 wheels. So, and accidents do happen. Like I said, I did have that crash just out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's, you try and recollect, like, okay, what was it's weird. I think that's where when you do the post crash analysis and you really start, and I think the worst thing you can do is do that like 2 minutes after unless you know for sure what it was, and you don't, and you realize it in the minute, right as soon as it happens. Like I literally know why I went down. I hit the front brake when I shouldn't have, something along those lines. Then it becomes that, like, okay, I need to get this out of my head because I need to focus on the task at hand. And I mean, that doesn't even apply. I mean, that just applies to writing in general, because I think that's where you start turning it into that whole, like, one accident leads to another. Well, yeah, because you were not focused on the task at hand. You were in your mind, you were somewhere else, which was, 10 kilometers ago trying to figure out why you took a soil sample. You're wrong thing.
And you cannot do that at Abu Dhabi. I think that's the biggest thing. There's concentration. There is absolutely everything.
Yeah. God, man, that's crazy. But I mean, overall, what do you think as far as the Abu Dhabi? Like, if to the people listening, and this is, we're gonna get to part 2 here in just a minute. And for those playing the home game, you're gonna have to wait a little bit before you hear part 2. But overall, what do you think of Abu Dhabi as a training event? What already, is this, like, would you say, like, this is the event you want to go to for the Dakar because of the dunes at the Dakar?
So I think, in short, it's going to depend on each listener's experience level. If you are an experienced dune rider, like many of the guys in, say, Dubai or the UAE, and you need navigation, then, there's going to be, like, I know Morocco's got more tricky navigation, but then you're going to want to go to a race that does trickier navigation because you have your sand stuff down. For me personally, I wanted to do Abu Dhabi because it's the hardest qualifier, and I would definitely recommend it for anybody that's in my situation, which is my situation was that I was proficient at riding sand. I was okay, but I wasn't experienced, number one. And number two, there was an intimidation factor. And that intimidation factor, anybody that's done Sonora would understand it. If you come up to those massive dunes for the first time and you just have no idea what to do. So the experience factor comes in for your safety factor to try and get as much experience as possible to be safe. And then the intimidation factor comes in from understanding how to attack these dunes so that you get up without expending energy. The one thing is that if you pick up that bike full of fuel, and the organization always makes you refuel before the toughest, loosest sections of sand, it just destroys your day. And Mike Johnson gave me that advice a few times, is that, don't put the bike down. That is the key that was the key, at least for me, is, you do not want to pick up the bike. You do not want to expend energy. That's why you're on the bike.
Yeah.
So the experience level and the intimidation level, if you're 100% dialed with sand and dunes, you are going to love Abu Dhabi, like definitely. But if you're the average guy that like me, that want to get that out of your system, for Abu Dhabi, I went training in Namibia twice. And I spent the first part of the year training. And definitely that's something I will say to anybody that wants to go. It is so expensive. So make sure that you are as fit as you can be, because, the last thing you want to do is go there and not enjoy it. Then there's no point. So it is an extremely demanding, physically demanding race just because of the sand. It doesn't stop. But at the same time, if you have your fitness dialed and you don't get tired, then you're loving it. Then you're enjoying it.
Nice.
So yeah. So for Dakar, definitely look, the part where it doesn't touch on Dakar is a hotel rally. And that is a big, this year things changed. We actually had several bivouacs, but, in Dakar, obviously you're staying in a massive bivouac with a lot of noise and stuff, which I have done that before. So I didn't mind an hotel rally, but I would say the biggest difference is the riding is extremely tough and challenging, but then the scenario in which you stay is nice, because you stay in UAE hotels or Abu Dhabi hotels, and that obviously changes the entire aspect of how you race, because you sleep in a nice bed at night and all of that stuff. So it just depends on what kind of experience you need, but you also can't do Abu Dhabi and think you're going to be okay for Dakar. Like, it needs to be it's part of your experience tool case. If you just do Abu Dhabi and you think that you're ready for Dakar, you're not. You're gonna get a big fright. Yeah.
God, man. So it's all right. So I think that sound, because I can see that. I see that with adventure riders, and some people are like, sand, all right, let's do it. I'm good with sand washes. And other people are like, nope, I don't want it. If it even smells like sand, I don't want to be near it, so, so like you said, and I think that is going to be a weak point in the sand is for most people, because dune riding on two wheels is not easy, and I think that there's a reason why, a lot of testing, durability testing and stuff like that gets done in the dunes for that specific reason is that even if you are a really good rider, it's still hard on the bike.
Exactly. And I mean, if I can just quickly touch on that, I'm sure we can make a complete separate, discussion about dune riding and the actual bike. I'm actually busy with an article right now about, the things I've learned about riding an RFR in the sand. But, so if you don't have that part dialed, that's also going to cost you your race. Like, the big thing that I knew, but luckily going into it before the time, but like on a normal bike, it's a little bit different, but even on the RFR, you do not touch your clutch. Like, you can, like every single one of these really experienced guys told me, if you use your clutch at all, in the dunes, you will not finish this race. That's what people tell you. It's like, don't use the clutch. And the other thing with the RFRs, for instance,
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hey, super quick break in the episode. Let's talk about it. We have got the newsletter. If you have not signed up for that already, get on over to the link in the description. Head on over to the website and get signed up. So looking to bring you guys information on both Chasing Waypoints upcoming episodes, rally schools, rally events coming up, videos, all the stuff that we've got going on in the rally community here in North America and abroad. We're looking to share that with you guys. So if you haven't already, jump on over. Link is in the description. Head on over to the website, get signed up for the newsletter, and let's get back to the episode.
A lot of people lost engines, a few of them, and this is something that I've never heard of until I was at Abu Dhabi, is that if you put your bike down with the exhaust end in the sand on a downward angle, the sand runs into the exhaust like water.
Oh.
And the moment that happens, I don't know how the engine stuff works that well. I mean, I know the basics, but that's also why I'm not doing mailto. But, I'd always thought that the exhaust blows out the sand. Like it's the exhaust, right? That's the port, so it blows out. But somehow, I don't know how exactly it works. You might know better than me. If you get sand in your exhaust, it could, or it does, pull the sand into the bike. And you basically seize your bike right there in the middle of the dunes. And this happened to at least one of my teammates, another guy that I knew. I know of a guy at Dakar that it happened. So it's a common occurrence, but it's something that nobody tells you about. So, out of the 5 times, if I did put the bike down, the first thing I did before I did anything else was just to check, is the exhaust in the air or is it in the sand? If it's in the sand, it doesn't matter what was happening. Immediately focused on just pulling the bike so that, they couldn't get sand in the exhaust. But something that small can cost you the race. Knowing that something like that, to do that if you do put your bike down, for instance. Or if you do put your bike down, don't sit there and, think about how great the world is. Focus on just getting out of that situation first.
Well, that's I have a theory, but we're going to leave it on that one. I have a theory as to why it may happen, but for those playing the home game and you're on Spotify, you can leave a response on this. Why do you guys think it happens? I think that will be a good, and then once it hits YouTube, if you guys are listening to this on YouTube, you can also comment on it. So why do you guys think that might be? Why does sand make its way all the way into the motor the wrong way? Everybody is worried about the intake.
Yep. I'll send you photos that you can post if you want with it of a guy like, at what the piston looked like and how much sand actually comes out of the exhaust. It's insane.
Yeah. Nice. So we'll do that. We will do that. Okay. That is where we're going to call it for the first one and talking about Abu Dhabi. So let's move on to part 2. All right. So that was Willem Avenant. Part 2 of the conversation. We had to divide it up into 2. Had to do it. But I think it's absolutely awesome. There's a lot going on. We're excited. Here we go. We're getting close. He's got points. He's getting everything. We're getting to the point where the Dakar is opening up its registration, and it's going to be a good one. So let's see how this shakes down. So what do you guys think? What's the next one? Have you signed up for the newsletter? Because every time we talk and I get more ideas, it sounds like we need to be doing more of this or that or the other. And well, we're going to be doing it. So next up, we're going to try and get more of the rally school events. When are the schools coming? So we know, so you guys can plan on attending. We can get some recipes going for you so you know what you need to be able to go attend one of these events and have fun. So let me know if you guys got any specific questions that you want answered. If you're on Spotify, hit that Q&A section. Let me know what you're thinking. If you're listening to this on YouTube, hit the comments. Figure out, put up a comment there. I'll reply there to you. If you're on any of the other platforms, and I believe we're up to 12 now, any of the other platforms and you guys are listening to us worldwide, do not hesitate to hit us up on Instagram at Chasing Waypoints. Send us a direct message, and we're happy to help you on that one as well. So don't forget, chasingwaypoints.com. Scroll on down. You can get on the newsletter. You could also request additional information. So hope everybody is doing well. And remember, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. All right, that is a wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Looking forward to our next one coming up. Remember, if you are out riding, do not forget to tag us at Chasing Waypoints. Hashtag Chasing Waypoints. And if you haven't already, get on over to the website. Get signed up for the newsletter, the Bivouac, North America's rally raid and adventure riding newsletter. Hey, let's have some fun. Let's find out what you guys up to. Let's get you featured. If you're a brand and looking to get supported, get some eyeballs, get some ears on your business, absolutely hit us up. Send us a message at podcast at Chasing Waypoints. But anyway, that is a wrap. Remember, shiny side up. See you guys.